literally just started my period. Let's just start with that. I just started my period the second that we hit record, and this has been a really hard podcast to even get started in the first place.
Welcome to the Made to Flourish podcast.
Your host, Megan Yasmina, and our third host, baby Ava.
Ava Joy is here with us
Joy.
today.
She finally joined us. Yes, mommy. She is the cutest little fuzzy-headed baby. If you're not watching this on our YouTube channel, you're missing out because she is seriously the cutest thing you've ever seen. So today, we're actually going to talk about Yasmina's home birth.
Yes.
Which happened in this very room.
Yes.
Almost on this bed.
Partially on this bed, yes. And almost like a month ago now, too. So we are...
a little bit over a month ago.
Yeah, I think this is like week 5 for her. Wow. So, yeah, what a magical night that was. Let me get her situated really quick.
Yeah, no big deal. We wanted to have this podcast, like, in the bed with little baby girl, recovering mom. We are really big on postpartum recovery, so This is the point.
And I've really been embracing that. I think having a baby in the wintertime, I 10 out of 10 recommend, by the way.
Oh,
You've had like 3 of yours.
Yeah, 3 of mine. Yeah.
In the winter.
I'm going to tell you this, when you have her first birthday party, you're going to not love it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is what you're experiencing.
Yes, yeah, literally.
I know you have like potentially 29-degree weather on Meadow's first birthday, which does make me sad.
Yeah, I'd have to cancel her party. There's no way
I know.
they can have all those kids in. But the last time we recorded here in this house, I thought you were going into labor.
Yes, that day. Like that night, I literally thought I was going into labor. And it's so funny. I was like thinking about how I was like looking back at some of our podcasts, and I was like, man, I was like such a shell of a human in those like last couple of months. Like my 3rd trimester really was difficult. And I just like I was just not well. But I'm feeling a lot better now. Like,
Yasmina's shell of a person is like 3 times a regular person though. So like you still were slaying, honestly.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know, like when I look back at it, I'm like, wow, I was really struggling. Like internally, there was a lot of just like exhaustion and just like mental like fogginess. Like I just was like, huh? Like we'd just be saying, I'd be like, huh? Literally, what are we talking about? What are we doing right now? So I definitely, even though postpartum has its own glory of all that stuff, I feel really good. But before we get into postpartum, let's talk about the birth story. For those of you who don't know, I have 2 other girls, and their birthdays are on 6/6 and 4/4, and my husband's birthday is on 10/10. Well, Ava's due date was literally 12/12. And so the week of her due date, I was like, this baby's coming out. This is going down. Meg's given Ava some nice burping loving. And I was just like, we're Operation Make Baby Come. Like, this is going down. Also, I'm like, there's no way I can go longer because she was measuring bigger and I just felt like done. Like, I'm just done. And so like the 9th, I remember like I was like feeling super hormonal. And I don't know if you can connect this to your other like going into labor, and maybe not because you've had to kind of like encourage it. But I can recall the last 3 nights or days before I went into labor, my hormones really shifted. Like I felt like crazy irritable. Yeah. And like just like really like a little bit of like a tyrant, you know? Like I just felt really irritable.
Intense, very
easily triggered. And so I felt that on Monday the 9th, and I remember thinking, oh no. And I had like picked up my 2.5-year-old who was like having a tantrum, and then like I tripped over a pillow, and then I had to like kind of drop my 2-year-old so that I didn't like fall on her and on my belly. And it wasn't from a very high distance or anything, so everyone's okay. She was like at my knee level. But like just that catching myself having a trip, like it kind of like encouraged these cramps. Right. And I was like, man. So I was like cramping for a couple of hours, and I was like,
which honestly, it's so crazy. I'm talking to your mic since I don't have mine.
Oh yeah.
It's so crazy to think about how you think that you think that the 4th time around you would just know.
Yeah. Like
that you wouldn't have any doubt. Mm-hmm. It's just like the first time.
Totally.
Like every time you're like 40 weeks pregnant and you're like, I literally have no clue. Is this labor? Is this not labor?
Yeah.
Is she dropping or is she not dropping? Am I going to be pregnant for another 2 weeks or am I going to have her tonight? Like that was all going through your head.
Totally. I mean, I literally thought I was going into labor every day for the last like 3 weeks.
You got me freaked out. Yeah. The night before Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I thought I was going into labor the night before Thanksgiving. I thought Thanksgiving she's coming like, and which was the day that we recorded the last set of podcasts. I mean, I was cramping for hours. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is going down. And I was super hormonal. I was crying. So but it didn't happen.
To the day before.
So now it's the night of the 9th, and I'm cramping for a few hours. And I'm like, yeah, I think this might happen. And so the last time I like encouraged labor, I did all the things. Like we like walked on the beach, we had sex, we like I did like the spinning babies. I like did all the things that like encouraged natural labor. And so in my mind, I was like, well, if this is going down tomorrow, I want to get it in one more time. So I was like, Akeem, let's just go. Yeah. And so we did that. I did some like my nightly stretches and all that stuff. And all through that night, I like was just cramping and just having these like low level cramps, but they were in my cervix. And so I was like, man, and I didn't sleep very well at all. Hardly at all I slept. And so now I'm waking up on the 10th and I'm like, no, I got 2 days until 12/12. But I had actually had like a chiropractor appointment scheduled that day and a massage because that was just like my routine every week, just to kind of like encourage my muscles, encourage my pelvis really to just like be in the proper position. And so I went to my chiropractor appointment. It felt really good. And then I came home and took a nap, and I was getting up to go to my massage appointment when my mucus plug came out.
That's right, the mucus plug. And that was when we were like, all right, this is going to be happening.
Yes, because at this point I was still pretty much contracting, like
low level. Like early labor.
Yeah, very, very early.
So let's give dates and times again. This is now 12/10. So December 10th, you are going in for your prenatal appointment. You just lose your mucus plug. Yeah, you're kind of in early labor.
I'm in early labor. It's 1:30. I lose my mucus plug. I'm like, okay, this is going down. So now I'm driving to my massage and I'm making all the calls. I called you. I called my mom. I called my midwife. I called babysitting backup. I called the person who had my dog, who's going to keep my dog. Like I had to like in a 20-minute car ride. I'm like, it's like figure out my life.
Which honestly is mercy that you lost your mucus plug.
It is.
Because if you didn't, even though you can regrow mucus plugs, I feel like for you, being that far along, being so close to your due date, it was like, okay, or I'm not having to scramble now that like labor is like ramped up. Like you hadn't had time.
Totally. It is. I'm so grateful for that time because it's necessary when you have 3 other kids and, you know, a lot of like details to figure out. I'm just really grateful that we had that time and space to figure it out. And again, this was kind of like the process I went through with Ellie. So it was like, it felt familiar. I'm like, okay, I know how to prepare for this. And so I got to my massage appointment, this massage therapist who was like so good to me my whole 3rd trimester. I like told her that I lost my mucus plug and she just was like, well, we're gonna like, she's like went hard and she like tried, I feel like she tried to kill me.
She went into your legs, right?
Oh,
like crazy leg massage.
Legs. Yeah, like as if I was like a runner or like a hardcore weight trainer. Like I needed that. Like I felt like she was like pushing out like, I don't know, deep memories in my leg muscle.
So when did you feel like you knew for a fact, like I am in labor? Like when did you feel like...
I don't think I knew for a fact until like midnight that night.
Okay.
You know, because going back to what you're saying.
Right.
Like
you still doubt it.
Yeah, it's like there's this part where you're like, I don't really fully know until we're there.
Until you can't back out.
Until we can't back out.
So you said goodbye to your children. That was an emotional experience.
This was really sweet. Okay, so this is kind of where redemption began for me. Number one, the redemption began with my whole prayer during my last trimester was that my water wouldn't break early, right? So like, and this will make sense later.
You'll understand the irony of that in later on this episode.
Yes. And that was just like a big fear of mine. I've had 2 of my babies who my water just like broke suddenly without contractions in the 37th week. And I don't know, there was just a lot of fear around that, a lot of concern with that. And so for me to have gotten to 40 weeks, just about 40 weeks, for me to have gotten to 39 weeks, I was so grateful. And my water hadn't broken yet. Now, with that, so I get home from the massage, like everything's in order. My mom's on her way to get my kids. We get the kids' stuff in order. So now it's like 3:30 in the afternoon. And we actually had this like conversation with my oldest who really wanted to stay for the birth, or at least she thought she wanted to stay for the birth. And I think she really did. But it was kind of a big discussion for us because she's 6.5 and like we feel like there was a big part of it that could handle it, but then there was a part that like maybe she wouldn't be able to handle the boundaries around it, as well as just like timing and just like all the logistics, right? So we had to have like a conversation with her like, hey, this is happening, this is going down, and do you want to stay for this? Your siblings are going to go to grandma's house, to Gigi's house, and you either can choose to stay or go. And so she was like, I think I really want to be with my siblings and I want to go to Gigi's house. We had that conversation. We're like, okay, cool. That's great. I was really relieved that she came to that conclusion herself because we kind of wanted to come to that conclusion, but we were like trying to stay open. And so she came to that conclusion. The kids got all packed. My mom gets there. It's like now 4:30. I'm starting to have, at this point, between 3:30 and 5 o'clock when they left, I'm having contractions probably every 10 minutes. And they're enough where I'm like, ooh. and I'm like having to move. So they've moved from cramps to now I need to actually like move through these and breathe through these.
You're having to focus on them.
I'm having to focus.
You can't just like ignore them. You're like, oh, a contraction's coming.
Yes. And I'm like pausing. So that started happening 3:30 to 5.
And that's a big indicator of like, okay, like we're moving into active labor.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And I started getting really emotional because I'm like, okay, this is about to go down. Yeah. Like it's always a very emotional moment. Like where like I'm about to enter this. I don't even know what to call it.
I would say that the key things that I feel in this point is I feel dread because I know it's about to happen.
Yeah.
And I feel relief because I know it's about to end.
Yeah.
And I feel excitement about what's going to begin.
Yeah. It's such an emotional experience where you like having this like knowledge that you're about to enter into like a new era. Like you're saying goodbye to something. You're saying hello to something.
Yes.
And you also know you're about to endure this like massive physical experience that is hard. It's beautiful. God bless you, Ava Joy. It is beautiful and it is challenging.
Yeah.
And it's scary and it's exciting.
And there's so many unknowns, you know, because your last home birth was a transfer to a hospital and then an emergency C-section.
Yeah.
And so it's very vulnerable for you. Not only were you having and I just heard this recently. Normally they call a vaginal delivery after a C-section a VBAC.
Yes.
But you had an HBAC, a home birth after a cesarean, which I just heard that term recently with someone an HBAC, yeah.
I like it.
Which I love it. It's a thing now because that used to not be a thing back in the day. If you had a C-section, people instantly were like, oh, I can't have a home birth
100%.
now. But now, like, look at you. Like, you're about to enter into this. And you called me, I think, at around 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, so the kids leave at 5. So this was kind of an important detail of, like, redemption for me. Now I remember what I was talking about earlier of redemption because what I realized through Ava's birth was that the last 3 births had some sort of shock level to my births that kind of took me out of being present. It kind of disconnected me. It brought me a little bit to like low levels of dissociation because with like Zara's birth, it was like first off, it's my first birth, first pregnancy. My water breaks like a waterfall. I'm 37 and a half weeks. I'm not having contractions. There's just a lot of confusion around that experience, though it ended up very well. Then with Ellie, it was like, now it's my first time having contractions. I'm trying to learn what my body is saying. I had to like drive to another person's home, a birth suite. And then I had her in the water and all of those things are really good and beautiful, but they were just like new, right?
Yes. There's not this level of like comfort and expectation you have.
Yes. There's no familiarity.
Yeah, no familiarity. That's good.
Everything felt new. Yeah. And there's this internal shock level at that. Then with Zion, for my water to break, my water broke on our 10-year wedding anniversary at 36 weeks and 6 days. And Eliana was just a 1-year-old and I was so not expecting that. I was so scared and like I just felt like I knew.
Disappointed.
I felt disappointed.
I think you also kind of slipped a little bit into like blame. I feel like you blamed yourself. I remember you being like, what if I didn't do this? What if I should have done this? And I was like, no, that's not it. But
I think I think I did feel that way with the way that progression of the labor went. Because we took a few days. We like really tried a lot of things. And I'm like, maybe in hindsight, if I had just gone early like I did with Zara, maybe we would have had a different outcome for sure. But even like that initial moment of like my water breaking, it's our 10-year wedding anniversary. I'm 36 weeks and 6 days. This is not what it was supposed to be. Ellie's like, I don't know. I just was like so disappointed, so scared, so in shock. And I remember the girls, my mom was already on her way over that morning, happened to be because we were going to celebrate our 10-year wedding anniversary. And I couldn't even say goodbye. I couldn't even look at Eliana because I was so like overwhelmed with this emotion from this experience. And so I just remember like just feeling disconnected and disassociated. And then I went into a emergency C-section in which I truly disassociated, like beyond. So to have this moment now, fast forward to my 4th pregnancy. This little girl, Ava, just so you guys know, she's a little grunty today because I think she's got some stuff to move through her body. She was up a lot last night with some stuff in her tummy. But, what was the redemption moment is that I got to have this really beautiful, beautiful moment with my children as I said goodbye to them. And I'm going to share this picture. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to share this goodbye moment picture that I had with my kids and my family, because it was just like such a special moment for me, where I was actually like moving through a contraction on the floor, and I'm realizing I'm about to say goodbye to them, and I'm just like overwhelmed with emotion. I'm pretty sure Zara was crying as well, and my Ellie's like on my right shoulder hugging my neck. Zara's down here, you know, hugging me from here. Zion's on Akeem's lap, like rubbing my shoulder because he sees all the girls on me. He's like, what's happening? Like, I think this is what I need to do.
Moment. Yeah.
Because he's in that kind of mirroring phase right now, which is really cute. And we just had this like really sweet goodbye as a family, where it was kind of like, okay, goodbye to us 5. Yeah. Goodbye to like Zion being the baby. And like, we're entering a new era. And it was just like, I'll forever cherish that goodbye.
That picture made me emotional. Yeah. I think all of us like shed a tear when we saw that picture. You sent in the group chat.
And in the picture, you'll see I had like tears going down my eyes. And it was just like a really special, connected, present moment for me that I'm really grateful I had.
I feel like that's like the weight of gratitude. That's kind of like the unspoken weight of gratitude, when like you are so grateful for like what you've had, that even though you're excited for the change to come, it like there's a weight to it where you're just like, I loved this and I'm so excited for that, but like, man, I'm so grateful for what you just have given me in this last few years.
The duality of like life and motherhood, like I feel like you don't understand the word duality, or like even just having like contradicting emotions at all times until you become a mom.
I think that's what I realized, that like emotions actually don't contradict anymore to me. Yeah, they just all coexist.
They all coexist. That's great. They all coexist. And it's funny, we just finished watching, sidebar, we just finished watching the last episode of season 4 of The Chosen, and there's this really sweet scene where Mary, they're like flashed to forward, and Mary Magdalene, she actually like wrote something, and it talks about how like life is full like of bitterness and sweetness. And I was like, me and Akeem looked at each other like, ain't that life? Yeah. Just like this like constant flow of bitterness and sweetness at the same time.
Wow. It's that whole like already here but not yet mentality of like the kingdom of God. Yeah. Like we get to experience the kingdom of God, and yet we also experience being separated from like the like final the final kingdom of God, you know, the so eternal kingdom of God.
So true. So okay,
your beautiful
so
goodbye
I said
moment.
Goodbye. So that was like redemption number 1 of presence. So I would describe this birth as like a very connected, present experience. I was able to be really present, which was another answer to prayer, considering I felt incredibly disconnected my whole pregnancy from myself, the Lord, you know, like just I just felt so disconnected emotionally, the whole thing. Yeah. So that was that. So they left. It's 5:00. Akeem and I look at each other. We're like, okay, this is about to go down. So we pray. We actually paused and prayed, and we like dedicated my birth to the Lord. We just like committed that night to the Lord and this baby and the labor and everything like that. And that was a really sweet, another present kind of like connected, intentional moment that Akeem and I got to have, where we both kind of got to just like anchor ourselves, you know, in the Lord and with each other. And so that was really sweet. And then we were like, let's get this house in order. So for like 2 hours, we just like cleaned up, got the house in order. He got the pool, the tub set up, that was funny for us because it was our first time. So we were just like, what are we doing? So I'll also share, hopefully we can share a picture too. You can see what our little setup looks like. So we did that for about 2 hours, and then we laid in bed and we took a nap, and Akeem got a solid 2-hour nap in. I slept for 45 minutes.
Oh, you were so exhausted.
And I know the irritation of like that lack of sleep that whole week still bothers me. But, so I slept about 45 minutes, and the whole time I kept like internally being like, I don't know, maybe I'm not that far, maybe not that far. But then I had this moment after that nap at like 8:45 where I was like, I could be totally underestimating this. And so that's when I texted you and I said, why don't you come? And so you got to me about 9:15. Yeah. And I texted my midwife.
By the way, she lives like 26 minutes away, and you so you guys
have 4 minutes.
I literally like sprinted. Yeah.
I love you. Yeah, seriously. And so you came back like 9:15.
Remember how I brought my bra in and I threw it on the ground, and then Akeem picked it up and like looked at me, and I was like, sorry.
Whose is this?
I almost left without my bra.
Yeah, you like came in all your glory with my favorite Christmas cookies.
Oh, that's right.
Those were so good.
And my organ meat
meatballs. Which were also so good. Those are on your
my blog. Yeah,
your
my
blog.
Website, yeah.
Oh, highly recommend.
Hidden liver meatballs.
Hey,
girl,
shameless plug.
I knew that you needed some nourishing foods and a sweet treat.
You know me. You know me and you love me. And so you came at 9:15, and then I asked my midwife, I was like, if she could just come between 10:30 and 11, I think that'll be okay. Because again, I'm like, I don't know, am I really there yet? But also, could I underestimate this? Because I think I have a high pain tolerance, and I have the tendency to like almost like downplay it. And so you came, and then you kind of helped me. We kind of started making some good intentional moves, and my contractions had really started to pick up by then. At that point I was having like 30-second contractions every 5 minutes though.
And they weren't super intense. I do remember
they
that.
They were in my cervix the whole time.
Right. But
you're right, they weren't super
intense. Moment that I feel like I thought, okay, I think she's like legit in labor, was when you started barfing. The first time. Key thing. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's agreed. I think that's when it really took a shift. Yeah, so I think right before my midwife came, which she ended up walking in at like 11, the contractions shifted a little bit. They were a little bit longer. They were a little bit deeper. Remember, I had to lay down. And I was like, I'm kind of feeling a little nauseous. Like, that's when the nausea started to kick in, and that was around 11-ish. And then she checked me at... Did I throw up before she checked me or after she checked me? You threw up before, because I'm pretty sure I remember Akeem bringing a bowl to you when we were in your front room.
Yes.
And you were on the birthing ball.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think I had my first throw up, which was my dinner, which was super sexy. It was my favorite. Stuffed bell peppers. They're from Costco, and I don't know what to tell you. They're so good. Okay. I don't know how to explain it. Life hack. Yes, stuffed green bell peppers from Costco are amazing, but they came out, and so that was really sad for me, because the last time I threw up with Ellie's, it was also rice. It was like also a Mexican thing. So but that was
like right before you had the baby. So when you threw up, I was like, okay, maybe we're close to transition. We were not.
No, we were.
We were still very far.
Oh, for this one, yes, exactly. For Ellie's, I threw up and I had her like 30 minutes later. This one took a while, but I think now we know why. Yes. In hindsight, so it's like probably 11:30. I throw up. Midwife checks me. Yep. At 12, I'm like 5 centimeters dilated. You look at me, you're like, that's great. I'm like, cool, great. And I'm thinking, wow, I just threw up. I'm probably going to progress really fast now. So it's 12.
Tell me what was helping you throughout, what, talk to me about Akeem, what I was doing. What were some supportive things that were going on, or some ways that, like, at this point you were able to feel like in a good headspace?
Okay, so we had really beautiful worship music playing, and that was something I really just like wanted to experience and feel. And I felt like there was, so I really felt like God's presence was there. I felt like I was really engaging with that and invited that in, and I really felt the Lord's presence with us. And I felt like all of our hearts, your heart, Akeem's heart, we were all engaged with the Lord in that too. And so like, I felt like we were like literally in a worship session, honestly. Yeah. And that was really special to me. That made me feel really like just calm. Yeah. And then like you were super helpful to kind of keep me moving and put me in very specific strategic moves that like Akeem could have figured out, but I loved that he didn't have to. Right. I loved that he could just be my encourager. Support, and Akeem was like an incredible emotional support. I know you. I am undone. Like I've never seen a husband be so sweet. Like, you guys don't know Akeem. Akeem is hilarious, sarcastic, like sharp-witted, like businessman. Like that's what you see. Labor Akeem was like what they write romance novels about. Yes, literally. I have never seen such love, such intimate love. That was like the most intimate like love I've ever been a part of, ever. Like I've never, like I kept thinking I'm so glad that Akeem is choosing to love her like this, even though I'm here, because I know that it probably would have been easy for him to do it when I'm not there. But the fact that like there was another person there that was very, very vulnerable of him, and he like chose you to really show up in the most beautiful. Like when I tell you, this man was like every contraction he had something loving and supportive to say. Every single one. I know. He would be like falling asleep at the very end, and you'd have a contraction. He'd be like, "Good job, baby." like it was. I just have never seen anything like that before. It was amazing. Yeah. When it comes to like his family and like his children and me, I don't know, he just loves hard. Yeah, he was unwavering. Even when you had doubt, when you're like, I don't know, he's like, are you kidding? Yeah. This is amazing. You're doing a good job. Honey, like every labor is different. Every baby's, he was like saying things where I'm like,
where are you getting this from? Where
he's not even on social media, so it's not like he's learning from reels.
It was like God took what your heart wanted and like just downloaded it to Akeem, and like he just showed up in like the most beautiful way.
I'm really grateful. He was such a safe place for me emotionally during that experience. Yeah, just, and I'm a words of affirmation person, right. So for him to just be like
words,
constant words of affirmation was really, really helpful, actually. Yeah. And yeah, he showed up for me super, super well and super beautifully. And so like to have him in the front, not only was he like saying the most amazing things, I don't know if you caught this, his face, did you see his face the whole time? Of course. I was like, the man did not like stop smiling and like look at me with these like eyes of like adoration and like delight. Like I felt like I was looking in the Father's face, like honestly, like God the Father.
I like 100% back you up on that. Like it was like hard to look away from it, but I knew I needed to give him like a little bit of privacy. But I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm like, can you stay? Can you stay?
Literally, like just look at me and do this every day, all day, at all times. No, but it really, I felt like just this beaming delight from his face over me that just like was so profound.
And from my perspective, like you really were able to stay in the mindset of like take each contraction as they come. Not until like hour 7 of like active labor do I feel like you were kind of starting to like ask some questions, which is good. Like that wasn't a bad thing. It was just like I feel like you were able to for such a long time be in a place of every contraction is its own contraction. Yeah. You were able to stay calm. I did a lot of hip squeezes.
Yes, those were so helpful.
Some counter pressure.
Freaking love hip squeezes.
Yes, and then we also had to boil a lot of water on the stove.
Yes.
So we're getting now into like 1, 2, 3 in the morning. You're in active labor. You've thrown up multiple times at this point. We finally have the tub hot enough. It's filled up. You get into the tub. How do you feel when you get into the tub the first time?
Oh my gosh, I remember getting into the tub and immediately just being like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I get to do this. Yeah. Like, I'm so glad that I get to jump into a pool of water and float. Like, it was so regulating.
Wow. Yeah.
And I, again, it wasn't even like I was close to even actually pushing or laboring even at that point, like, and like actively, in the sense of I wasn't ready to push when I went to the pool. Remember, I had to go in like twice, but to be able to like float in there through some contractions, because so with Ellie, she was born in the water, but because I had to drive 40 minutes to the birth suite to get to that, I only pushed in the water.
Right.
Remember? So like we got to the birth suite, I threw up in the driveway, we walk in, I take my clothes off, I get in the pool and I start pushing.
Right.
So I didn't get to experience
no ease into it.
No, exactly. Like I didn't get to experience like the benefit of a water birth in the sense of getting to like really labor and like feel the calming, regulating benefit.
The relief
of the water. And so that was really amazing. I remember just like floating in there being like, wow, I'm like so grateful. And it felt so good. It was so calming. And I think that's when we started getting pretty tired, right? Because now it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just remember us like coming in and out of like, we'd just be like worshiping all together. And then I would like throw up and then everyone would be like praying in the spirit together. Yes. And then like we would go back to sleeping and then we would wake up and like keep worshiping. And it was just like this ebb and flow of like worship, prayer, and like encouragement, like moving through, the labor and so, or the contractions. And so they started to pick up, but then like I remember you made me go on the toilet a bunch and I appreciated that, but I hated it all.
I know. I remember you were like, I feel like this is calming me down too much. And your labor kind of started stalling out, which I felt because for my fourth birth, though I got into the water sooner.
Yeah.
Then I needed, not sooner than I needed to. I wanted to get in the water and kind of have a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
Because my labors are pretty fast.
No, it was so nice.
And so yours was like a kind of a nice little like reset. You really got to relax. Akeem and I both kind of fell asleep on the ground, on the bed, in between your contractions. And then it was like, okay, I remember you saying like, you wanted to get things moving. You're like, okay, I'm ready to get things moving again, which is how I felt in the tub too. I was like, all right, I'm ready to get things moving again. Went right to the toilet, got you on back on the toilet.
Yeah.
So you're back on the toilet now. You had some really good contraction on the toilet, and
that made another round of mucus plug came out. Remember?
Right.
Which we're like, okay, this is good.
Cervix dilating.
So that was probably like around 2:30ish. I tried the TENS machines. Okay, so I heard a lot of people talk about like the TENS machine, like use the TENS machine to help like move through labor. And so we had one. I was like, well then shoot, I'm going to try that. Hated it.
Yeah. Instant no.
Get it off of me. Jail. Immediately. Jail. Like it was way too intense.
Yeah.
Way too powerful. 10 out of 10 don't recommend for me personally, but you know what? Give it a try.
Yeah. And you really, like, I remember when you did that, you were in bed. You labored in bed. You labored on the ball. You labored on the toilet. You labored in the water. You labored lunging. You did some inverted. You did remember some of those inverted contractions? I think that's what we started doing around 2 or 3 in the morning was you put your booty up in the air, remember?
Right. So that's kind of what changed some things too, right? So, okay. So she had checked me and she felt the head in the cervix, right? So she's like, I feel the head completely locked and loaded, 5 centimeters. We're like, this is good. She was like, but remember, she couldn't hear the heartbeat.
Yeah, she kept trying to find the heartbeat.
She couldn't, like, it was really, really hard for her to find her heartbeat. And we would find it, but it would be like so subtle. So she was posterior, I think is what we've come to the conclusion, because when I birthed her, I felt her face.
Well, it's funny because you didn't have any back labor.
I know. But I wonder if it was just like the positioning of my.
Did your midwife think that she was posterior even after birth? Did she say that?
I think so.
Oh man, okay.
I think we had we discussed that. I was like, well, I mean, I felt like her forehead and I felt like her ear and like her nose. Like,
yeah, interesting.
So, but it would make sense as to why we couldn't hear her heartbeat.
Yes.
And it probably made sense
positioning
as to the positioning and stuff. And so we did some inversion stuff, and I think that kind of changed some things because my contractions did get a little more intense, but I kept feeling the cervix. But then it was like 3:00 or 3:30 when I'm like, I'm feeling discouraged. Like I'm actually like I'm tired. I don't feel like I'm progressing. I feel like I should be. But like something's not working. But I think that could have been transition talking.
That could have been transition talking, which is what I thought too.
Yeah.
And I just want to sidebar. By this point, I have now not nursed my child.
Yeah, we got to do this
for about 10 hours. So my boobs are like ginormous melons. Yeah. And they're hard and they're hot. Yes. And I'm starting to think, either I need to figure out how to use Yasmina's breast pump while she's in labor, which would be
we should have done that.
That would have been disruptive. You know, but by the time that you're kind of experiencing all this doubt, one of our friends who's a doula, who lives right down the road from me, was like, hey, Meg, how can I help? How's Yasmina doing? Like, what's going on? And I was like, honestly, the only thing I can think of for you to help is to get me my child so I can nurse her. Yeah. So sidebar, we'll finish that story in a minute.
This is a big, important sidebar because Meg, who's like just the most incredible friend in the world, like will move mountains to like be there for you despite what she has to move in order to be there for you. Her husband was out of town.
Yes.
Her sister just happened to like be sleeping there that night because her sister works 12-hour shifts, and like just still made it happen to be here with me. And she has like she has a 1-year-old, breastfed baby. And so that was going on the whole time. I'm not thinking about that, obviously, right. But Meg is. And like, so she's at this point, it's the middle of the night. She's like engorged and she's trying to figure out how to fix this problem.
Yeah, I just didn't want it to be a distraction, and I could feel every time I bent over, it was just like I was just aching. You know that really achy feeling you have?
Yes.
Yeah, because Meadow was 10 months, so she was still nursing like 4 times a night.
Right.
And so I've missed like 4 or 5 nursing sessions.
Your body's like, what is happening?
Yeah. And I started. I just wanted to like get it out of the way, so I wasn't thinking about it anymore. I wanted to be present. Yeah. So so you're starting to enter transition. I'm thinking, okay, this is great. Like I'm texting my friend. I'm like, if you could bring me the baby, I can nurse her in the driveway and then come back. So as this is going on, I feel like your midwife comes in and starts giving you some options.
Yeah, she hears me say to them, I'm getting discouraged. I'm not feeling good. What's happening? What's going on? And so she comes in, which was really something sidebar too. I noticed she was really like not involved. She really just hung out in the living room. She came in and checked the heartbeat of the baby every 30 minutes. Yeah. And she just like let us figure it out.
Yeah, she was on the couch sleeping with a birth assistant, which is great. What she was doing? Yeah, they like did some like laptop stuff, like charting, I'm sure, charting some stuff, and then they like just lay down. Yeah, which was great because you want your people to be like rested-ish, And
what was funny, because now this is all happening right on 12/10. Now we're in 12/11. 12/10, my midwife was in a labor. When I texted her like, hey, I think I'm in labor, she's out of labor. Wow. So she's like, and I think she had one the day before. So this is now her third birth in 3 days. So, good for her.
These midwives, man, I don't know how they do it.
No, seriously. And So she overhears me. She comes in. She said, I just want you to know you have some options. One of those options is I can actually break your water for you, which is really great in my situation because not every midwife is willing to do that, right? We actually just interviewed Sydney Mustard a couple weeks ago, and I don't think she in her practice will offer that.
Right.
So that's a good question, I think, to ask. Like, if you're exploring a midwife, is like, what are some of the intervention processes that they are comfortable doing? Because what I've discovered is that, like, every midwife is comfortable with something different. There's some midwives that are like, I will never do castor oil. There's some midwives that's what they do. Some do the water breaking, some don't. So I think that's a really good question.
It is.
And I think this was the grace of God again, like on my labor, right? Because like if I had gone to a different midwife who maybe hadn't done that, but this is what my scenario was, I would have been another transfer at this point.
Right.
So she comes in, she tells me she's willing to break my water.
She said, you have two choices. I can either break your water or you can try to lay down and act like this isn't happening and try to like sleep. Yeah. Which I feel like for you, you were like,
I was like, no,
I can't
in
sleep.
too deep.
Yeah.
In too deep, unless you give me like hard drugs. I'm in too deep.
I think like, even Akeem and I, like pulling that all-nighter, we're also like hoping like, of course we would support you no matter what, but I think all of us were kind of like, let's do this. Yeah. Let's like finish this game.
Yep. So so now we're like 4:00 in the morning on 12/11, and so I'm like, okay, like let's talk about it. So me and you and Akeem talked about it, and so she's like, well, I need to check you obviously. So I lay down here on the end of this bed. And which is so funny because Akeem, I didn't think I was ever going to be on the bed because my experiences up to this never allowed that for him. But I was on the bed a lot, and then I got nervous because Akeem's like worst fear about having a home birth was that like blood would get on our bed and fluids would get on our bed. And so anyways, I think we bypassed it for the most part. But so I'm on the end of the bed. She checks me now, and she's like, oh, interesting. All I feel are your water bags. You feel about 7 centimeters dilated, but... This is an important key, guys. This is important. This is into my heart.
This is where I choose to forgive.
You feel about 7 centimeters dilated, but all I feel are your water bags. Now I don't feel her head anymore. When before, 4 hours earlier, she felt her head fully engaged, but now I don't feel her head. So she said under her breath, almost like she was kind of like processing out loud, like I almost don't know if I feel comfortable.
The risk with the head not being there is that there could be a cord prolapse, which is where they break the waters and the cord comes out before the baby, which is like really dangerous, like truly like an emergency situation. And that would have been an instant transfer, call the ambulance, like that would have been, so that's the risk.
Yeah.
And you just like, you really got to figure out what kind of risks you're okay with. And I feel like for you and your level of exhaustion, you were thinking, the risk of us not breaking the water actually feels worse because I'm getting to the point of exhaustion where I almost want to be transferred regardless.
Right.
And so it was like you had maternal exhaustion and you had possible prolapse, but
Right. And so I don't know if you remember, I'm like laying there, which is very uncomfortable, by the way, to like lay in that position. Getting your cervix checked and like the whole thing just sucks.
And then your contractions were intense at that point.
So intense.